Hello there, and welcome once again to your favorite film podcast to listen to while smoking your crack.
Mm.
This is Film Crack.
Hmm.
I am Edward Snowjob, and he is.
You know what? Every time I come ill prepared for this banter,
It's
Clive.
just your name, man. You should know your own name.
I should know my own name, but I sadly don't. That's a nice cup. It's
As
a
a
kind of
Magritte.
yeah. I was gonna say it looks Magritte.
I got that at an exhibition.
Nice. Yeah. No, I'm just Nick. I'm just Nick.
I'll do.
But anyway, Clive, let me know how because this episode should have been my choice.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you get two in a
you
row. So,
you jumped in there and but
well,
that's
this is
fine.
actually my mere culpa as well, right? Because
Okay.
I'm not really sure if kind of this is worthy of an episode, to be honest with you. But I got a bit excited because after the white hot thrills of Uli Lamel and having to
Yes.
catch Bike Rider last time,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
I happened just to be watching something else because actually, oddly enough, there was a direct connection, kind of um, the channel that hosted some of the HB Halicki stuff.
Right.
I think it's called SCL Stunt Fan or something like that, which is a YouTube channel devoted to car chases and stunts and things like
Right.
that. And I was having a sift through, and I noticed they had a film called Terror Squad, and they had um, the original cut of it apparently, which had been slightly messed with for release apparently, and it's
Right.
kind of it's like composite, right? So they have
Yeah.
some shitty scenes that
None of
moved.
none of the footage that's added is in any way
No, no, no,
necessary or
no. I
interesting or
no, and
just
they also say there's a thing about it's got the original score, and the original score is rubbish and repetitive and boring. But you know me, Nick, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, and
yeah.
it's also one of those things that my first instinct is to SS it and grab it off of YouTube
Mm.
for a few to add, to that ridiculous pile of films that I have to
Yes.
watch, right? But it wouldn't download.
Ah.
So I'm like, oh well, fuck it. It's triage, right? So I I
Right.
I watch it now, and then about I don't know 30 minutes into it, I was like, oh man, this is I'm getting
Hmm.
the bonkers vibe
Hmm.
of a mid 80s Uli Lamel film
Yep.
here. And then I jumped the gun somewhat, and I was like, Nick, because I was like, I knew we were meeting to talk about something else. Nick, we must do this. And then
Hmm.
obviously we can't talk about one film, so I was looking around for something else to pair it up with. And the same director also made this thing called Land of Doom, um,
Yes.
which
The,
doesn't seem
the
to
year
have
before,
survived
basically.
VHS, right? It's up on.
Right.
I was like, yes, post-apoc, and it'll lead
Hmm.
into your next thing as well, right?
Yes.
Um, and then it turns out, I mean, well, we'll get to it, but for me, I think like so Terror Squad is nuts, but
Yes.
then kind of evens out a little bit. And
It's somewhat.
yeah, it's still kind of nuts.
Yeah.
It's not as bonkers as it is in its first half, I think.
Hmm.
And then Land of Doom is, well, that's not quite as. Although I suspect maybe you might have enjoyed it
I
more.
did get along okay with it,
Yeah, I thought you might have
but
done.
and actually, I would say I quite like the score for Terror Squad. I
Oh, really?
find it, I found it kind of enjoyably because it sounds out of place. There's a lot of flute and a lot of like it sounds more like a 70s score than an 80s score in some ways.
Yeah,
It
my
kind
thing
of
is it was just massively repetitive. But again, that's part of the the maddening joy of the first half for me.
right.
So anyway,
Um,
yeah. So had you seen neither of these before as well?
no, I had no idea about yeah, even this. I mean, I know Chuck Connors,
Right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But that was about it. Yeah, but Peter Maris, the director of both of these films, is not somebody who was on my radar at all.
Well, I knew him only from so prior to these, he made this film called Delirium, uh,
Okay.
aka Psycho Puppet, which was on the Video Nasties list.
Okay.
And the reason I mean, that's kind of a slightly strange film, but not not as interesting as they made it. So it's been on Quentin Tarantino on Roger Avery's Video Archives podcast, and like a lot of
Okay.
things, they make it sound a lot more interesting than it actually
Yeah.
is. They're quite easily pleased, those two. I have to say. Um, but the thing that's notable about it for UK viewers, which I can imagine back in the day in the early 80s, if you stumbled back from the pub and picked up a copy of it and a
hmm
curry and a six pack and might
hmm
have made you spit out your curry when you got home
Poppadoms. hmm
is so there's a piece of music used in it, and it's a piece of library music, and I can't remember. It's called something like, the title is something like Approaching Danger or
hmm
Encountering Danger or something like that. But the reason it would cause viewers in the UK to sit up is it's the theme tune for Mastermind.
Oh, okay.
So you're watching this kind of thriller thing, and
hmm
then all of a sudden, duh, and which
So
probably
wait,
means
the
nothing to
theme tune for
non-UK viewers.
Mastermind is a piece of library music.
Yeah,
That's funny. It's just that's so chintzy that they wouldn't just like commission their own.
yeah, you'd assume it was from the BBC, right? But no, no, no,
Yeah.
it's from the, like, yeah, the De Wolf archive or something.
Okay, awesome. Huh.
But it's really incongruous seeing it in an American thriller.
Right. Bizarre.
So he made that.
Okay.
And he might be Turkish. I couldn't find out on the IMDb, but he also co-directed a film called Curse of the Red Butterfly as well, which is Turkish. And then there's this Land of Doom is shot in
Yep.
Turkey. There seems to be some
Not just
Turkish.
shot in Turkey, but it's very hard not to have in your head he's a man of mystery when you're
Yes,
watching that
yes,
film
yes.
because it is exactly shot in the same
I
place.
was wondering if that was Cappadocia National
It
Park.
is. Oh
It
yeah,
is
it's
it? Okay,
completely yeah.
right.
Some shots might as well be right out of your
Yeah.
I was like yours world. So that right away, that
Yes,
I was like, oh
that
yeah,
put
this is
me in a
very
slightly
comfortable.
good mood as well. But still, I still felt the need to apologize somewhat because it wasn't quite what I was hoping it would be. But you seem to have got on with it. So
It was yeah, it was fun. I would say it's probably like mid to a top tier like Mad Max ripoffs because let's face it, Mad Max ripoffs. There's very few of them that are in any way good.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's do Terror
Yeah,
Squad
yeah,
first then.
yes.
Before we bury the lead here, because so yeah, directed, produced, Peter Barris, written by Chuck Rose, and so I was wondering if you know this guy Mark Verheiden at all.
Oh yes. So his name was very surprising to me when it showed up
Right.
because as a 14-year-old, um, 13, 14-year-old, I was buying the Dark Horse Aliens comics, right?
Oh,
So Dark Horse did, I think, a very good run of which came out before Alien 3. So they, in fact, they end up now telling like a kind of a apocryphal story, right? Because it continues the story of like Hicks and Newt
mm,
and Ripley, in a world where they don't all fucking die immediately after the end of Aliens, right?
right.
And it's really beautifully drawn. And yeah, Mark Verheiden's scripts are quite tight, like they're quite good. It's a good story. So yeah, while watching Terror Squad, I was having a slightly hard time putting together
Right.
the person who created this story with the
I
Mark.
was wondering if you knew who. I wasn't familiar, but looking him up, I was like, oh, this guy seems to be quite a big deal in the comics world, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely, and
is
still
that
is.
something? Do you think that's something that would hold? Because I, even though we've talked about this before, and I did enjoy that. Was it Marvel RoboCop uh,
hmm
thing? I've always kind of avoided comics based on existing
Like
film comics.
IPs.
Like I would never think to read, sorry, something like that or an Evil Dead comic or something like that. But
Right.
is that something that would
Funnily
hold
enough,
up,
though,
you think?
I would actually argue that the adaptation of John Bolton's adaptation of Army of Darkness is better than Army of Darkness.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I really feel that somehow it captures the spirit of Evil Dead 2 much better than the film Army of Darkness
Right.
captures that same feeling and that same energy. And it has scenes in it that are from apparently from the shooting script that weren't filmed. So it's a
Yeah.
more fleshed out. But anyway, But yeah, so I would say what the Aliens comics, I mean, they were done by Dark Horse, so that they are quite a bit edgier. I mean, edge is the wrong word. That's a shitty word. But yeah, they're grislier. They're darker
Right,
than
right.
maybe a Marvel adaptation would have been or something like that.
Okay.
Um,
Because I'm always interested to ask you because it's like I said, it's not that I don't think that there's stuff there that's worthy, but because you're in such um fan by territory, right? You
mhm.
need someone to go ahead with a torch and shine the way. Come on, don't go down that tunnel. Come down
Now that
because
said, I haven't
because it's
read them since I was 14, so
no,
it's
no,
entirely possible that I might be wrong, right?
but at least I trust your judgment to a certain extent because you're in such murky territory then, and as well the criticism, right? It's just awesome. It's awesome. Oh, it's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
really, awesome. Awesome. Like, and I want actual someone who, is a proper reader of comics to tell me, no, that don't that one,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure there is someone who writes about this stuff eloquently but I
Mhm.
don't know. I haven't found that person yet. So
Right.
yeah.
So anyway, but after Terror Squad, I did start to wonder if I might have been wrong.
I wonder if there was a Terror Squad comic.
I can only dream that that would be the case. This, I mean, I will say, just before we get into even talking about the plot, such as it is, this is the most 80s film I have maybe ever seen. Like
Really?
truly, this thing is like distilled, boiled down, a reduction of the 80s, like a balsamic, you know, because it has everything that you would want. If you wanted, like you were like, well, what are the things you want from an 80s film? You want the Breakfast Club, right?
Mm,
You want a Libyan terrorist squad out of Back to the Future.
right.
You want Dukes of Hazzard car chases. It's like everything all mashed into this thing that doesn't quite work, but is more
Yeah.
fun than it should be. I
The
had a
only
lot
thing
of
then
fun with Terror Squad.
the only thing they were missing there isn't a scene where I don't know, like Judge Reinhold and Dudley Moore swap places or something like that.
Yes,
And
yeah, it was one of the very few 80s, yeah, tropes missing from this, but it is quite astonishing how, yeah, it was really the Breakfast Club stuff was the stuff that I was almost like, what is
well,
this
yeah, that's
doing?
why I think this is front loaded with the fun stuff because it's later on it starts to resemble a normal film a little bit, a ridiculous
Kind
one.
of,
Yeah.
yes,
But yeah, so we kick off with, I mean, they never actually mention it's Libya, but there's clearly like a Gaddafi lookalike
yeah,
complaining about American imperialists, like
and
and
they're burning effigies of,
yes.
whatever, and yeah,
So we see some radicalized. Well, also, so it flashes back. So there's that, but then you also have the other thing I like is, I mean, you say 80s, but then you have this rather anachronistic 50s style juvenile delinquent rocker, right?
yep,
Who plays an interminably long version of Peggy Sue.
yep, with the school's janitor, as you do.
Well, I was wondering about this as well because that school janitor who, spoiler alert, soon ends up dead. Even though I
Mhm.
wouldn't say he's the world's greatest actor, there was something about him. He had a gravitas about him,
Hmm.
and he seemed to actually know what he was doing with his guitar.
Hmm.
So I looked him up, and this guy is hang on, over here is better. Hang on, can't read my writing. He is Orville Baggy Hardiman, and he used to play in a rhythm and blues group called Four Kings and a Queen, who put out some
Okay.
sides in like the 40s. So he is like a proper blues musician.
Yeah,
Um,
he definitely seemed to have the chops, no question. But
yes,
that's a weird scene. And it also, to me, it has little hints of Back to the Future again as
yes,
well.
absolutely. I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah. But
Except that makes sense because he's in the 50s, right? So, but
yes.
I don't know what this
And
dork's doing.
no, and it's funny too because he also obviously he's supposed to sort of be Judd Nelson's character in The Breakfast Club, right? That's to me, he's the rocker dude, and the jock guy set makes some comment about how he's out probably out stealing cars or whatever. Like he's the juvenile delinquent, as you said. But he's
Right.
also he looks like Zac Efron. Like he in a way, as you said, he harks back to the 50s, but he also harks forward to like High School Musical and that shit.
Yes, yes. I wonder if the makers of High School Musical were Terror Squad fans.
I can only assume. But anyway, that's Bill Calvert as Johnny. He does seem to have been in some other stuff. Um, but
Yes.
yes, so
What was he in? Oh yes, that's what he's in. Chud 2, Bud the Chud.
yes.
Uh, yeah.
Awesome. So anyway, yeah, so we start at school, right?
Yes.
Basically.
It's a
Um,
detention. We basically end up with this detention thing, and this, and but this is the stuff I was enjoying because this stuff
mhm,
just goes, all it's like the same
mhm.
one or two gags on
Yes.
repeat for a while,
Yes.
right?
Oh shit, of course. Sorry, Revenge of the Nerds is the other obvious thing that this is cribbed from, right? Because we
Yes,
have our hyper nerdly, sexually fixated
who seems to
geeky
have
character.
a mobile television plan,
Yeah, very
very
early.
ahead of his time because it doesn't,
Yes.
it's not bulky, and he's watching some weird,
Aerobic
yeah,
sex tape.
yeah, aerobics thing, but it's been filmed from like, right up between people's crotches and stuff. It's like
Yep. And also, I like that whenever they cut to it, because they obviously couldn't afford to have a real thing. It's like it's a still shot, like it's literally a photograph, like of the
yeah.
fingers on the thing, and then the inserted, like, yeah,
But he's just there drooling and enjoying himself. And then the teacher keeps telling him to turn it off. And then he keeps
oh,
telling Johnny to put his
yes,
feet down off the table, like
yes.
again and again and
But
again.
and he's so, but he's also in. They've established that this is his main character earlier because he's in detention hall because he was like he had some sort of like weird science type of computer sex program running in the
That's
like
right.
computer lab
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. No, no, he's full on. Uh,
Mhm.
there's also a cheerleader, and then there's, I guess, the Molly Ringwald snooty girl who
Yep.
everyone seems to want to get with, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
then there's the other one too,
Doc, obviously.
the one who gets the makeover as well in
Yeah.
like the more punky looking girl, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes. Yes, the Ali Sheedy of the
The
of
Ali
it
Sheedy
all.
one. Yeah, yeah. It's like they've literally got every one of them,
If
and they just
Anthony
and
Michael Hall was a total perv in the
yeah.
real
Well, again, if they plucked him out of Revenge of the Nerds more than
right.
it's like they've just mashed him up with Carradine or whatever the fuck from that film.
Just
Um,
give me a minute there, Nick.
certainly. Um,
Okay.
I'm assuming he's talking to his cats.
No, 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 it's fine.
No?
Um, yes. So then we cut back to so the other thing I enjoyed. So I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed
Mhm.
just what the hell, this is just going on and on and on and on. But then when that's not going, we go back to the Libyan terrorists who
Yes.
have they crossed the border from Canada? It
Yeah,
seems.
maybe.
I don't.
Probably. That's
Yeah,
how these things normally work. That's what the US normally claims anyway.
and they
Uh,
head towards some kind of nuclear power plant,
mhm.
which they fail to blow up.
Spectacularly fail,
Yeah.
yes.
And then there's the most secure. I mean, I don't know the geography, but I'm guessing somehow if you've got somewhere with a nuclear power plant, and then you can't blow it up, and then you flee, right? They flee, and I assume they're heading for some sort of port or airport
Well,
or
they're heading for Kokomo, Indiana, is my
well,
understanding.
eventually. But you
Where
wonder
the
how
entire
the
thing
fuck
is
did they
filmed.
end up there? Because they really went off the beaten track, right? Like they're going down like they're going down like dirt roads and things and stuff. But yeah, they
Yeah,
end up
yeah.
at Kokomo, Indiana,
Hmm.
and I mean, this is the bit that the
Yeah,
highlight of the
this
film
is
for me.
yeah, absolutely. Just the endless scenes of them driving around in their van, shooting rocket launcher and endless ammo, endless rockets,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just blowing the shit out of innocent bystanders who are like
it's great.
pushing trams and walking around in the street.
There's some quite good car chase stuff as well. But
Yeah.
yes, but yeah, they're just shooting randomly at the windows, and there's like oh, like men falling off ladders. So one man catches fire, like in the
Yep.
street. But my absolute favorite, just in terms of gratuitous, like, oh, we have this footage because it makes no sense at all, right? They're crashing things, and then you get a shot of like a smokestack like
Yes.
being demolished, and you're thinking,
Yes.
how did they do that?
With the rocket launcher, because but also a water tower. They do two major
Oh, that's
demolitions,
right. Yeah.
and the water tower immediately took me back to poor HB Halicki,
Flicky.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, um, yeah, no, that whole segment is I was like,
It's great, isn't it? So,
yeah,
and that was the point at which I sent you a
right, of
message.
course, yes,
Yeah, so
yeah,
we
right,
have our two Carrie Raz and Joseph Nasser, our two terrorists who eventually end up at this Kokomo, Indiana high school.
yes. Funny enough, Cavi is obviously not of Middle Eastern background at all. Like
Right.
he seems. I mean, it's always I always wonder about that. Like actors who are willing to like be like, sure, I'll play this horrifying stereotype. I mean, I'm not even. Is it like do they? Well, I'm not from. I'm a guy from India, so I can do that. Like it's not reflecting poorly on my country
Yeah,
and
I think
culture,
so. I'm getting paid, and
right?
I'm looking for you know, a foot in the door. You know,
Mm. But
uh,
he's been in a fair amount of other stuff, and I think he's also a producer and stuff as
they're
well.
both in lots of stuff. Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
then so Chief of Police Chuck Connors.
who's actually really good, I have to say. He's not phoning it in at all in this, I think. I
He's quite
think,
sincere.
yeah. And Chuck is an actor who I've always kind of liked. But in this, I really got on his vibe. I was like, yeah, this is the grumpy, like
Right.
Ronald Reagan looking cop I want.
I felt a bit more sorry for Ken Forey.
Yep.
I mean, he really doesn't have much to do, right?
No, like why bother hiring somebody who can act and then not really let them, except he just gets barked at occasionally by Chuck Connors.
Well, did you notice the other? Because I didn't know. I had to look this up. So there's two people who are probably kind of given not given too much to do. Ken Forey is the obvious one,
Mhm.
but the other cop as well is played by Brody Greer, and he
Okay.
was a regular on Chips.
Oh,
Years,
okay.
years and years, years and years. So I'm guessing as well he must have felt a little bit like, what the hell am I? I
What
was
am
on
I
a
doing here?
huge TV show, you know.
Um,
Yeah, and then it just kind of, I mean, there's still stuff happens after that, but I would say it does kind of settle down then, but like it doesn't quite reach the dizzy heights of the pervy aerobics watching kid long scenes and like bonkers
no.
car chase stuff. Like it's a settles down a bit. It's still enjoyable.
Yes, yeah, but it kind of becomes a more obvious sort of hostage thing. But then, Clive, you know me too well, I think, because I many years ago wrote a book that's never seen the light of day. But in that book, I described in detail a recurring fantasy I had in at the age of 15 in my high school math class
Careful now.
the of the class
Down with that kind of thing.
of yeah, like a gang of like sort of developing world, third world revolutionaries like breaking into the school, like a la Red Dawn or whatever, right? And
That's probably
then
at the back of this as well, isn't it? A bit as Red Dawn.
oh yeah, no question, Red
Yeah.
Dawn is in the DNA here. Yeah, and then basically these bunch of like spaghetti western sounding kind of like guys being like deciding like, hey, we want you to make fuck with these girls,
Right, right, right,
and
right.
then yeah, and I'm like, but then I have to do
You're,
it.
oh, I'm busy watching my aerobics and you leave me alone.
They'll but otherwise they'll kill us all. And then the girls are secretly like, oh please, because they'd always suspected that I would be a sensitive yet proficient lover. But this is a whole yeah, this was a recurring fantasy I
This film
had.
was made for you.
I said like, oh, this is insanely on the money.
It's also
But yeah,
there's a bit of Die Hard, pre-Die Hard, I suppose.
yep,
Johnny does kind of man up a bit, and
at
then
the
there's
end,
one final ridiculous car chase with a school
with the
bus.
school bus, which
Um,
is different in every shot. Like it's different
yes,
lengths. Like it's the continuity is spectacular in this film.
and even after the driver is shot dead, still manages to turn a curve
Yeah.
just so it can jump into a freight train for
Yes.
no
No
reason.
reason other than awesomeness.
Yeah,
And let us not forget that our nerdy Pervo at one point goes
I
full
think his name was
MacGyver.
Nick. I think.
I think it was, yeah. He goes full MacGyver and goes down to like the metal shop and makes a crossbow out
Yes.
of like, spare parts and then uses it to shoot one of the terrorists with.
Did you do this in your fantasy version or?
No, we actually just did that in Metal Shop when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
It was all just guys making shuriken, and then
Right,
whipping them
right,
around.
right. Ah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, you know what? As I said, horrific stereotypes aside, which I mean, it's an '80s action film,
Mm.
so you're gonna get what you get. Yeah, quite a bit of fun
It is
for
kind of fun, right?
yeah. And again, really nice, like an hour and 20
Yeah.
3 minutes maybe like credits take up a chunk of time, yeah, so it's really doesn't overstay its welcome, doesn't really lag,
Unlike
although it's
us.
repetitive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
um
appreciate as well that this website kind of forced me because it's the kind of thing I would normally not get around to seeing.
mhm.
But then, yeah, doing the triage, and I was like, oh, I'm quite glad that I ended up watching it because it's quite nice to just see something very, very silly now and
Yes,
again, right? As a
yes.
palate cleanser, right?
Mhm.
Um,
And I will say it doesn't shy away from like a lot of the kids get killed, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
surprising number of them get killed, because
As
it
long as
becomes
you're not expecting full-on bonkersness of bike rider,
yes,
it's
yes.
yeah, it's not. It's a good time. I would recommend maybe get a six-pack
Mm,
pizza
yeah,
and you're off.
yeah, yeah.
So we're back in Cappadocia for
Hmm.
Land of Doom, not yours world.
Sadly, not yours
Uh,
world, no.
no,
Not quite as epic as Reb Brown running around in a tiny Speedo. Um,
no,
but
yeah. So I suppose that is something that I mean there are other ones as well, but I suppose this does it is notable as well actually that our hero is actually a heroine more than anything else. I mean, there is a hero, but he's kind of crippled,
yeah,
injured for most of the film, and then
yeah, and he's very much kind of plays second banana in some ways to her, which is funny because we you don't often see that actually in this type of film.
no, no, this is
And
Deborah
also,
Bernard, who was also
right.
in that Jean-Claude Van Damme film AWOL. Do you remember that, aka Lionheart?
Hmm.
Uh,
Quite like Lionheart actually. That's one of the better Van Dammes.
I don't remember anything about it. It's like that's a million years ago. I watched
Right.
all those Van Damme films, right?
Um,
And then he is Garrick Dowhen. I don't know who he is. And yes, so it's
no.
typical. It's your usual post-nuke world full of people with half masks and body armor
Mhm.
and silly haircuts and
Yes, it always.
modified vehicles. And
Have you ever seen this? Is it the SpongeBob movie, the original SpongeBob movie, where like Bikini Bottom goes like a post-apocalyptic at one point
oh
for some
yes,
reason, and
yeah,
there's a point where Mr. Krabs or whatever is like, "I hope he likes leather," and then suddenly everyone's in GIMP costumes immediately, and it just was like, yes,
yes.
what is it about
That
spiky leather bracelets?
reminds me, I do need to see the second SpongeBob film because I've heard apparently it's quite mad,
Oh, yes, yes.
and I do like some SpongeBob.
Hmm. But yes, anyway, it's the typical SpongeBob style post-apocalypse. Everyone's in leather, and I'll say they don't actually, there's no, although rape is like an omnipresent threat in this film.
Right.
It's actually not. There's no nudity, I don't think, and
No, no,
quite.
no.
It's quite. Yeah,
It's
yeah. It's interesting.
it's a somewhat family-friendly post-apocalyptic movie, right?
Yeah,
And there's no real
yeah. A bit more.
much in the way of gratuitous. I'm wondering if it was kind of aimed that way, maybe because in '86 there'd been so many of these things now, and they were like, "Oh, let's make like a version
Mm,
watch with your children or something like that."
right, right.
But yeah, no, it is worth noting. It's and everything about it in a way. So it's yeah, they're heading for some new Eden. They're looking for, and they
Mhm.
encounter some cannibals, and are they supposed to be like Cajun or something? Those cannibals because they have like outrageous accent.
French accents, yes.
Yes,
Um, And then there's a bunch of Jawas show up near the end, which is also quite weird. With the
Right.
same little, like ridiculous made up language voices and little robes running
And
around.
and there is a car chase or two, but nothing. But I don't know. Everything about it is just. It seems like you said, it's not the worst of its kind by any means. Like it's quite well put together, but it's not.
And I think the Cappadocian
Yes, that
landscape
helps.
that really adds production value to it. If it was just shot in your average quarry or,
Right.
like it would have been a lot crappier looking, but
Yeah.
it
It's a
somehow
beautiful looking
looks
place.
more impressive. Um, and yeah, funny, like I was thinking to myself actually later on, I was like, I wonder if this was an influence on like Fury Road. Just because we have a strong female kind of character, and there were certain things I was like, it just I'm obviously being facetious, but in a weird way, it does actually anticipate some of the
Yes.
more feminist later George Miller stuff, right?
Although she does eventually kind of cave in, and there's a romantic, happy ending, right?
Yeah, and she's very inconsistent in her like not wanting to be touched because like it's like there's certain scenes where she immediately flinches and gets all angry when anyone,
Right.
and then like literally the next scene he'll touch her on the arm and she won't respond in any way. You're like,
Right.
oh, yeah.
No means
Um,
yes, Nick,
apparently.
as I believe you know. Apparently based on a novel by Peter Cottis.
That made me wonder, yes.
I couldn't find any online
Yeah,
like picture of the
evidence of
paperback
this.
or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it might have been an unpublished novel or something
Right.
like that, maybe. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's difficult. Like I wouldn't. It's definite. I've seen much, 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 much worse,
Yep.
uh, and also much, much, much more fun. And I don't know who I recommend it to exactly. I can't think of anyone I'd be like, oh, I got just the film for you. Um, but it's
Yep.
okay, and it fits as well because I don't think it survived VHS, right? I don't think
No, I
it's a
think
DVD or
so.
a HD or anything like, which is kind of understandable because it is so thoroughly. I mean, I'm sure in another decade when we run out of everything else, there'll be a
A
HD
rediscovery.
with commentaries
Right.
and extras and you
Mhm.
know. But this is really where it kind of belongs, is in a rip on
Yes.
internetarchive.org, right? I think this is
Yes.
oddly enough, I remember seeing this. So when I first met Darren of this parish, um,
Hmm.
he introduced me to a video shop that he'd been going to for years and years and years and years. And it was a cool video shop to become a member of at that time because this was kind of on its way out. And they had a deal where, because there was a few villages away, so I didn't know about it, but they had this
Hmm.
deal where you could rent seven, I think it was seven films for a week for
Mm.
just £3.
That's a good
And it was
deal.
kind of midpoint between my sixth form college and my house. So I would get off the bus and I would go to this place pretty much every week. And I'd
Hmm.
just go. It was a small place, but it was very densely packed. It's the place me and Darren first found Edge of Hell. And
Oh, okay.
but I remember they had Land of Doom in there,
Oh,
which I
I don't ever
never.
remember. I don't ever remember seeing the VHS box for this.
Yeah,
Like,
it was there. I never rented it, but I was wondering, seeing as Darren had probably picked that place clean over the years, I'm wondering if Darren has ever watched Land of Doom.
Mhm. Um, what was nice about that too, I mean, I assume you had two VCRs as well, so that you were able to.
Ha, ho ho ho! Not my first rodeo. Thank you, please, Nick. It was.
Okay, well, that was the nice thing about those places where you could rent seven tapes at a time, because then you could
Right.
just, yeah.
Well, the other speaking of that as well, I remember, yeah, buying an old top loader, especially for this
Hmm.
job. But I remember, so this I was kind of having picked this store clean myself after a while, and I remember once asking the owner, like, "Have you got any like old tapes in the back by any chance?" Like, and he kind of kindly allowed me into, I guess it must have been where he lived, right? Like
Okay.
the apartment above the video shop, and there was just like piles of old VHS everywhere, and I picked out like seven things from there rather from the store to, and some
Right.
of them were quite rare, and some of them he wouldn't let me have because he knew they like were video nasties or whatever.
Okay.
Oh, actually, the one he would. I remember the one he refused to rent me, and I don't think it was a video nasty, but he didn't have a certificate on it. But in retrospect, is now that I've seen it, it makes me laugh that I was forbidden
Hmm.
Frankenstein Island.
Really?
Yeah. The spinning pink lunchbox of doom
Lunchbox was
is just
too
too
much for
much
a
to
young
go.
man, yes.
Yes. Who knows? I'd have gone wild in the streets,
You would
smashing
have
up the
been
local post office.
deeply confusing to a young mind.
Yeah. But I remember him giving me, but the thing is that I didn't consider, of course, were these tapes had been, so I immediately got it, and it immediately fucked up my, because they were
Oh,
just so full of just gunk, you know.
Jesus.
So I had to, yeah, spin the
You know,
cleaning tape through the machine a few times before it would work again after that.
you know that I worked for several months as the night shift man
Yes,
at an adult video shop.
where we first met, of course.
You wouldn't, weirdly enough, no. But the tapes would come back with like greasy thumbprints on them, pubic hairs caught in the gate. Like it
Nice.
was the skeeviest job in the world. You wanted to just bathe yourself in Purell and scalding hot water when you got home.
Well, I think about this was as there's whoever has to wipe down the screens at those
Yep,
you know those places, what are they called, peep shows or whatever, right?
yep.
But anyway, we are digressing, and I think that's because there's not
Because it's
that
not much
much
to
to say
say
about Land of
about
Doom.
Land of
No,
Doom,
no.
no.
But
But
we've watched it.
yep.
We've talked about it.
Hmm. If you
You're
have to choose
welcome.
between the two of them, you're going to want to go with The Breakfast Club meets name your Invasion USA, right? Like name
Yes.
your Norris racist action film from the 80s.
Invasion Red Club,
That's the one.
The Quickening. Yeah,
Um,
that's the one to go. And
that's
that's
the
the one
one.
as well. I can imagine, I can kind of see that getting a Blu-ray, maybe.
Hmm.
That's they
Yeah,
might
yeah.
they might even be like an extremely limited edition one that I'm not aware of.
Hmm.
But it would be different from this cut. That's the thing.
Yes, that is true. This cut
Yes,
has longer scenes of
I
nothing.
think happening. And
Yeah.
apparently a lot of the car chase stuff is in slow motion, right? That was the other thing. And I
Okay.
have no idea what the music is, but it can't be much worse. Um, anyway, until next
Hmm.
time.
Yep.
Bye.